Before you even think of making a corset, you need to watch this video. This is a must-watch video, and that is why I've gone ahead to make it simple, straightforward. In fact, call a spade a spade. Most of we designers, including myself, have made this mistake in one way or the other. That is why I come your way today to expose all those secrets. What's popping up, my amazing viewers? Hope Mother Nature is treating each and every one of you right. Hey guy, hey girl, never give up. Keep pressing on. Life itself is a war, and is for those who are determined to win. At this pleasant moment, I want you to sit back, take a chill pill, stay, and keep watching to the end of this content. Is it all the time we use grommets and eyelets in making our corset? Absolutely no. Most design demands designers to make loops for their lace-up corsets. Right here is a design we shall be making today. We shall be doing a very detailed experiment using different fabric pieces. We shall also be experimenting all the method, all the ways, and all the tips. I shall also be taking you through some of the common mistakes you are likely to face when you're trying to make this. I shall also be rendering all the solutions you need to overcome those mistakes. And at the end of the day, you become a master when it comes to making corset loops. Alright, let's begin with this particular fabric piece. This white material was a very light cotton material. If you want to achieve the perfect outcome, you need to make sure your fabric is unbiased. This fabric right here doesn't stretch. It only gives the stretchy effect when you put it on bias. So that is the direction we shall be folding our fabric piece. Every material tends to stretch when you put it on bias. No matter the type of material you want to use for this particular loops, you need to make sure your fabric is on bias. If your fabric is not on bias, this is how it's gonna look. The loops on this corset are so disorganized. But when your fabric is unbiased, this is how you're gonna look. Wow, compare these two designs, which one looks more nicer? You can choose for yourself, but I'll choose this one. It's not only the bias placement that will give you this effect. There are other tips and tricks that you must add up to be able to get this same design. And that is why you must keep watching this video till the end. Gone ahead to fold our fabric on bias. I shall be marking 1/4 inch. With this particular measurement, it depends on what the designer wants, okay? If you want it moderate, you could use 1/4 inch. If you want it so tiny, you could reduce it to less than 1/4 inch. If you want it big, you can increase it little more than 1/4 inch. Please make sure it doesn't get to 1/2 inch. If it gets to 1/2 inch, it wouldn't look like loops at all. If you make it 1/2 inch, just imagine your fabric is on fold. By the time you open it up, it's 1 inch. 1000 marking 1/4 inch. I shall be drawing a straight line through. From that 1/4 inch line, I shall be marking 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch from that 1/4 inch line. That is why I'm going to be marking on top here. Then I'll move it to the other point, mark there, move to the middle, mark there, and I'll be drawing a straight line through. After I was done drawing my straight line, I shall be cutting everything out. So now if you add the 1 inch to the 1/4 inch, we now have 0.7 inches, and our fabric is on fold. So when you open everything up, it's gonna be ×2, okay? Let me quickly secure the piece with my pins. Now take it to my sewing machine and sew that 1/4 inch line. That is the first line, okay? I'm done with the stitches, so I'm back to you again. And this was it. At this moment, I shall be needing your attention. So watch closely, don't blink your eye, okay? I'll pick one side of the piece, cut a little of the fabric piece diagonally, just the way you are seeing it. This is to make everything easy when we want to do our turnover, okay? And at the other side, I shall be coming in by 1/2 inch and I'll make a notch. And always make sure your notch doesn't touch your stitch. It should be very close to your stitch, but it shouldn't cut through your stitch. For cutting, this is how it should look like, okay? We shall need this bobbin piece for the turning. Most women use this for styling their hair. If you go to where they sell hairdressing items, you surely find some. When you're buying this, make sure you go for the medium size or the smaller size. If you go for the bigger size, sometimes it can create problems for you. The first thing I shall do is to open up the 2 legs of the bobbin this way. Place one leg inside that 1/2 inch hole this way. The last thing to do is to push all the 2 legs into the remaining of the other hole. And I shall be pulling it out gently. Please take your time when you're doing this. Depending on the type of material you are using, sometimes it can be stressful, especially when you are using Ankara fabric, because it's cotton. It's a bit difficult, okay? So when you are working, just be patient with it. All right, now everything is out. Right now, I want us to analyze this particular piece before moving to the next one. Looking at this outcome, that's not what we're looking for. Per the pictures I showed you, this is not what we should get. This is different, okay? Though it's quite similar. In fact, this is not the original thing we're looking for. And let's go to the next one. Now, from there, I'll tell you the mistakes, what to do and what not to do, and then how to do it, okay? So this one, we didn't get what we're looking for. Moving to the other material piece. This is a bridal satin. We shall be doing the same thing we did to the first white fabric piece, using the same measurements. But this other material was also placed on barriers. This doesn't stretch on either side, just like the first white fabric we used. Hey lady, if you're not a subscriber, what are you still waiting for? Be part of the wonderful family, okay? In this channel, we do everything fashion and sewing, from kids to men to ladies, everything sewable. We talk fashion, we eat fashion, we drink fashion, we sleep on fashion, we do everything fashion, okay? And I shall take it to my sewing machine, stitch this way, just as we did for the first one. Now I'm done with the stitches, so I'm going to be doing the same thing we did for the first one. So kindly watch this. If you don't understand the first one, you could get that better. The second thing is to cut about half an inch this way. It shouldn't cut your stitch. Open up the legs of your bobbin pin, close it, push all the two legs into the remaining of the hole, then you gently pull everything out. So with this bridal satin, it was a bit difficult than that of the first white material we used. That one was a bit lighter. Even though it was cotton, it was a bit lighter. We're done with it. Can you already see the differences between this fabric and the other fabric? Even though we use the same measurement, if you look at it, there are differences. This one is a bit rigid than that of the first one. The first one looks a bit relaxed, a bit loose. Alright, in this content, we shall also be using a Ridgeline boning. So this one right here is 1/4 of an inch Ridgeline boning. This was a bit more than 1/4 of an inch. And this last one was 1/2 an inch Ridgeline boning. So mostly I use 1/2 an inch Ridgeline boning. But if you don't get 1/2 an inch, you could go for the one that is a bit larger than the 1/4 of an inch Ridgeline boning, okay? The bigger the Ridgeline boning, the more space you have to make all your stitches. This is just the reason. Back to the first one we got, I shall be marking 1 inch from the starting point. After that 1 inch, I'm going to be marking 2 inches. Then I'll mark 1 inch again. Another 2 inches. 1 inch, 2 inches, in that order. So it's going to be 1 in 2 inches, 1 in 2 inches, 1 in 2 inches until my fabric is exhausted, depending on the number of loops I want. And that one should have been figured in when I was cutting the length of the fabric for the loops. I hope that is clear. Back to the boning. So I'm gonna cut my 1/2 an inch boning. I'm just trying to straighten it up. You could also use the iron to iron it down. So I'll place the first 1 inch at the tip of the boning, pin it down. This can be a bit stressful, but just be patient. Bring out my 2 inches. That will be the loop. Then I'll bend the 1 inch again, pin that down, bring my 2 inches out for the loop, bring my 1 inch in on the boning, in that order. That's what I'm going to be doing. Kindly take a very look at these two pieces. Though we use the same measurements, they were not the same. The green fabric, which was the satin fabric, was very stiff. It was full and it was rigid. But the first one was flat, very loose, and as if there was nothing in it. Okay, white loop was kind of giving me trouble, so that's why I placed it aside. Now let's work on the green one so that we all understand everything perfectly. I'm going to be marking the same thing: 1 inch, 2 inches, 1 inch, 2 inches. Now this 1 inch, 2 inches too is not a constant kind of thing, depending on what you want. You know, some people want their loops to be wider. So when you want it wider, you can increase it to even 2.5, even 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, okay? Or 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 1 in 1.5 inch, or 1 in 2 inches. Depending on how open you want your loops to be, that will determine the figures to use right here. Let's also look at the mistakes we made and how to correct them. Now, comparing both the green and the white material, we used the same figure, but the difference was the type of the material. So in this case, we don't treat all materials the same when we're working on corset loops, okay? Depending on the type of material, that will determine the figures to even use. So for the 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch, it worked perfectly for the bridal satin. But for the white material, what we needed to do was to increase that 1/2 inch to, let's say, 0.7 or even 1 inch. Because the fabric was so light, we needed a lot of material for the fill in. So for the 1/4 inch, we were to maintain it, but the 1/2 inch we needed to increase it to 0.7 or even 1 inch. So that is the correction for that, for the white material. Now the tip and the formula is, the heavier the material, the less material you need for the fill in, and the lighter the material, the more material you will need for the fill in. This is just the formula. The moderately is 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch. With this green bridal satin, let's do the same. We're going to be doing same as we did for the white material. So 2 inches will come out as the corset loop. 1 inch will be on the boning. I'll make sure the points that I marked are at the edges of the boning. So the points are going to help me to know where I'm placing the loops. Okay, I'm done with the arrangement. I think I'm okay with this. So I shall be stitching the loop on top of the bone at the edge of the bone this way. Let me quickly do that and come back. In fact, this should be double stitch. You need to stitch at both the edges of the boning like this. So I'm done. Let me cut this out and let's see what's up. Remember, I just folded it depending on how I wanted it. You could make yours 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inches or 2.5 inches. That means if you want yours exactly like this one right now, you should use 1.5 inches. Another examination. This was another material I used. This pink material was a Lycra fabric. I also used the same 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch. You know, Lycra stretches. So after using it, it was also so full, like it was super full, fuller than that of the green bridal satin. So the challenge was sewing on it was very difficult because it was very heavy and very full. It was difficult sewing on it, okay? So my advice is, Lycra is a bit heavier than bridal satin. Lycra stretches. So when you're using Lycra, don't put a lot of fabric for the fill in. Instead of 1/2 inch, maybe you can just reduce it a little. Okay, reduce it by a little so that you can get everything moderate. If you go for 1/2 inch, just as I said, it will be very full. These are my very observations. Now this is an Ankara fabric. I also tried using an Ankara fabric for the experiment, and what I came out with the Ankara fabric was the fact that, you know, Ankara fabric is cotton and it's a bit stiffer than when we're looking at bridal satin, okay? So with the Ankara fabric, I tried using the same 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch. So it worked, but the only challenge I faced was it was very difficult turning everything over. It was, in fact, really difficult because of the stiffness nature of the Ankara fabric. It didn't want to even go. The only solution for you to overcome this problem is to make sure that you reduce that 1/2 inch. You need to reduce the 1/2 inch. If not, you find challenges. I think these are the very things I wanted to share with you. I hope this video have been helpful. If so, then thumbs up. Then thank you for stopping by. Subscribe and be part of the family, or be coming your way with other interesting videos and other interesting content. Thank you.